5 days a week for the next 11 years, she cried. Quietly hidden, ashamed. And she buried her face in her hands, while the shoulders shook under a red shawl once vibrant bright red, now color of celebration and old wine and older wounds. Before her there squatted a metal bowl, mostly empty these days, for the street she had chosen to sit on was one that no longer bothered to see her. Then one morning, a morning like any other to everyone else, her tears disappeared with the click of a finger, not because she got an easy life now. Not because the money fell from the sky. But because someone knelt down in front of her, looked into eyes that had been avoided by everyone for 11 years, and asked her the one question. Why are you crying? And when she lifted up her head and saw WHO was asking, all things changed. This one is for you if you have ever felt not left out, but actually forgotten. The kind of forgotten where the flowers die on your grave. For, what you are about to listen to is not just the tale of an old beggar woman. It is any person who has ever murmured in the night, "How long, O Lord? How long will you look away?" However, to make sense of that morning, you need to understand the street first. You must understand the woman. You need to have the 11 years of silence that precedes the question. Because God almost never hurries a story. And He lets the night be as long as it needs to be, so that when morning comes, you will know, really know, whose hand made it. So listen. As you move high up into the sheer range of mountains is a town most maps will not show. It is not served by any buses, and buses will just drive right by. In it was a town of brick and tin roofs, severed power lines tangled more than any woman in 1980s hair metal bands ever dreamed, hand-painted signs reading "Ale Muarzas and Fari Tere." A town where everyone knows everyone, and yet, as you will see, to know someone is one thing and to see them another. And in that town is a street no one in the 2-Bitburg even remembers. Decades of rain have broken the cobblestones. Pooling together like tired old men, the buildings lean against one another, the paint flakes from the walls in long ragged strips. And the people walking that street, they walk fast. Bodies bent over, gazes trained on the horizon ahead of them, because there's something there on that street they do not want to see. In the coldest corner, against the wall of a hardware store, an old woman, her name was Rosa. The people on the street didn't usually call her by that name, however. They referred to her as the beggar, that poor woman, or just the word, she, in whispers, like it was a disease. The children, bred vicious by the cruelty of their first world society, but untrained to be kind yet, once called her La Llorona, the weeping woman. Because Rosa cried, crying in the morning at the opening of market, crying at noon when cooked food coursed down the street, and when lights died along rooftops in evening. She did not cry loudly, she sobbed like an animal wounded, covering her face perhaps not to let anyone witness her suffering. Her hair was gray and thin. Each winter she'd survived was drawn onto her face, the hands were cracked, the fingers bent like ancient roots. The hem of her skirt was torn and soiled with the dust of the street. A tiny metal bowl was set in front of her. The bowl was old. It had once been a soup bowl, a feeding bowl for a family. It stayed waiting for coins, but coins did not come most days. Don Mamani, the proprietor of the hardware store, spotted her every morning from behind his counter and every morning told himself, "She is going to leave. People like that always leave." For 11 years he had told himself this. He was a decent man. In the way that so many indifferent people are decent. He would have helped her if she needed it. But the emergency had never quite arrived, and Rosa was there every day. So Don Mamani learned not to see her. This is the cruel genius of human beings. We can accommodate ourselves to anything, even if there is a heart 3 feet away in agony. The lunch lady saw her too sometimes send a plate of soup with her daughter. Turned away quickly like charity was a sin. On the corner she felt them slow down and look away. The boys in the jackets sauntered by talking on their telephones. The mothers yanked their children's hands down and hissed, "Don't look, Mijo, don't look," with the same urgency as if misery were catching. But what nobody on that street knew was this: the metal bowl had not been Rosa's. Because there was another bowl, an unseen one, locked in hands she could not see. Every last one of Rosa's tears were being collected and measured and stored into that bowl, day after day, covetously, for it is written. And Rosa had forgotten, and the street had never been informed, that God gathers all our tears in His bottle, and that no tear of any of His children ever falls to the ground unobserved. The street did not know this. An old dirty woman with a bowl had gone on the street, but Rosa wasn't always this woman. That is the tragedy of the broken people we walk on top of. Each one was a little kid with a name and a date of birth and a favorite song. Every beggar once had a mistress. Rosa had been a daughter, Rosa had been a bride, Rosa had been a mother. Rosa was a woman who had been loved, and a man who had loved. And the one by one, Each of the axes of her universe had buckled. Before the street, before the bowl, before the tears. There was a girl. Rosa began as a song. She was delivered in a tiny adobe house on the mountains overlooking town, daughter of a woman who had laid 3 children to rest and from that loss forged an iron-clad, unyielding faith. In that house were 2 treasures, both wrapped in a fresh white linen, an antiquated Bible with letters as tea-stained and an aged rosary black from her mother's fingers. And every night, by candlelight, Mom drilled Rosa with the words that would follow her long after, Mija, God counts every tear. Not one of them falls to the ground apart from your father. Men count the coins in a rich man's wallet, they count the tears of a poor man, God counts those. And he keeps them, Mija. He keeps every single one. The happy ones, too. Little Rosa believed it wholeheartedly, like kids believe the sun is going to rise. And that belief became a tide on her heart. She had developed into a girl with the voice of a little bell. Sang as she walked for water, sang while hanging the washing, sang while kneading dough, and the neighbors would confess. You can tell that is Rosa's bread because it rises gayer. Of all the able-bodied young men who had come out to this market, one at least was willing to work. His name was Mateo, a carpenter, a door and window builder, a man who could talk to wood as though it was alive. Wide in the shoulders and silent of tongue. And when he laughed, his laughter rolled out of him, like thunder heard through stone, like something that had been taught by mountains themselves. After the big rains he came to fix up the roof. Rosa stepped out of the house holding a pitcher filled with chicha, snorted at whatever her sister said. Mateo stood up too fast on the roof and almost toppled into the void. He was not from up a 243 Palif, but he fell that day. He dropped the way a man drops only once. The old-fashioned way, slowly, respectfully, with terror and joy. He made her a little bird out of wood, its wings spread in flight, and when she asked him why a bird, he looked down at the ground and said, "Because you sing. And so one day you would know that even birds who can sing are still people, and this freedom is not to be feared." Her entire life she kept that bird. It was in her pocket on the wedding day, in the little stone church when her mom stuck that rosary into her hands and said, "Live so he collects joy from your eyes." Mateo made their house with his 2 hands, at the edge of town, on that street destined to one day forget her. That was where he put the floor down, elevated the walls, cut the windows wide. Rosa loved light, and when it was time to paint the door, Rosa went blue. "Why blue?" Mateo asked. She said, "Because blue is the color of the sky and God lives in the sky. That each time we exit this house, we exit under the blessing of the sky. And from every time we come home, we return home in the sky." He thunder laughed and painted the door blue. The bluest door in the town. And over the years, through that door wafted the smell of bread baked by Rosa, and the song of Rosa's voice, and laughter from a carpenter. And when neighbors saw it they would smile to themselves, "There goes that blue door house. There goes a happy house." They were content and they had no idea. That is the meaning of happiness. It is a paradise that we only know backwards. It seems ordinary while we are in it. We have no idea that we are living in the golden age. And then the joy was crowned. Daniel was born on a stormy night between 2 thunderbursts, and the carpenter who never wept cried like a child. He leaned over the cradle, he murmured a vow, "You will never go hungry. You will never know fear. Your father's hands will always be between you and the dark." Fathers make that promise honestly. And quite frankly, they actually cannot hold on to it. No hands of man are strong enough. One hand is one of the mercies inside the tragedy of fatherhood. Each night the 3 of them knelt together, Rosa saying the words for Daniel to repeat after her. "God counts each tear, Mijo. The happy ones too, he keeps every single one." And little Daniel with 2 missing front teeth would say in all seriousness, "God saves the tears." It was the family creed, the constitution of the abode with a jour portal. However, creeds are easy in sunshine. The secret most will never share with you regarding faith, it is not tested inside the house of joy. It is like the heat of a forge where swords are made in a house of fire. And the fire was coming. Sorrow does not knock, it kicks the door in. It arrived in what the ancients could only call the longest winter they could remember. Work dried up. And in the house with the blue door, a cough started out, small at first, carpenter's cough, sawdust lodged in the lungs. "Just the sawdust," Mateo said laughing. That winter though, the laugh ended in a noise Rosa had never heard him make. Mateo wore it as long as a man could. He had coughed into rags and burned them in the stove before anyone had seen. But one morning Rosa had done the wash and it left behind a rag he had not seen, unwrapped by the window light and discovered crimson. She did not scream. Grief. The first time you feel it is silent. She folded it and kept in backside of cupboard, prepared breakfast, sat with a smile at the table. Love, in a house like that, is a battle of silences. Mateo felt the town doctor listen to his chest for a long time, and when he finished he sat back without looking at Mateo. He looked at Rosa. The dust has gone too deep, and that has medicine that slows it down. But it costs, and even in that we talk about time, not cure. Time. From there, Rosa began counting coins in a way she would go on to count them on the street later. Though then it was for love. She did the laundry for all of town, scrubbing linens in freezing water at 5 a.m. until her knuckles bled. She sewed in the silver hoop earrings, good blankets, her coffin ring. Everything but the wooden bird. Some things are not for sale. There are some things that are the last defense of the citadel. The prescription would deliver what the physician was promised, time not a cure, and they did it as the poor do treasure. First completely, then with all your heart, lavishly, on each other. Those months were the best of Rosa's life, and the worst, and she could never separate the two any more than you can separate a blade from its edge. For a man who knows he will soon die, finally says the things that in life he was too busy, too proud and too alive to say. He said to Daniel with the boy's hand swallowed in his old one, "You're what I worked most hard on building. Better than any house. Be tough for your mom, but not too tough, me Joe. The only strong men never cry are frightened men with good posture. Cry when you need to. God keeps the tears, especially when it is difficult, believe it." And he whittled the boy a little cross, sanded smooth just like varnish. A second bird for Rosa, so that if the first should ever go, she knows, love never leaves her against the wind. And one night toward the end he made her swear, "Rosa, things will be difficult when I am no more. I am leaving you to the only one who does not leave, and that is my only peace. But promise me one thing. Keep the door blue, whatever comes. Whatever they do, keep the door blue. So, when Daniel comes home he finds the sky. For if you ever forget, which grief makes us do, the door will remember for you that we have been loved." "Promise me, I promise," she whispered. "The door stays blue," he smiled. And then, very softly, he laughed, the thunder rumbling one final time down from the mountains of his boyhood, and said the last thing she would ever hear him say. "Do not cry long, my Rosa. God keeps the tears. And I will have a home for you where the glowing has come from. I will leave the door open. It will be blue." Holding her hand, he died that same night. Rosa kept holding his hand until the hand stopped responding. And then longer, because letting go is a thing the hand learns more slowly than the heart. At the funeral it rained. A light gray endless rain, the sky weeping in a whisper. And next to the grave, dry-eyed, with a face like a closed fist, was her son. Daniel did not cry as the coffin went down. A man forced to behold in his enemy the way a man watches it go down, and on the way home he said, in a voice already the harder than his father's hands, "God doesn't keep anything, Mama. If he stored up tears, then surely should have stored Papa's." Rosa felt like answering with the creed, but the words died in her throat because you see the creed was a key and grief turned the lock. All she did was open her arms and Daniel fell into them and cried. Once, one rough sob, then pulled away from her and was cold. The heart receives any suffering that is not handed to God, and what the heart keeps, it turns into. What followed were years of slow attrition. The debt took the tools. The sickness took the savings. This is the case until her hair went gray and her back learned to bow. And Daniel grew tall and sturdy. This time, you are the base of the father's body with your father missing in it, free like a board out of good roof. And of one something grew within him, like a weed in a crevice. This town took my father. This town will take me. I will not die here. Then he began to talk about the north, of the land where a man with hands like his could make in a week what the valley would take a year to earn. He described it like other young men describe heaven. Incorrectly, wishfully, with unwavering belief. "Mama, I will send for you. I will work, I will save, and I will buy you a house where you'll never have to wash another sheet in ice water. I swear it." On the morning he departed, the sky was gray as old iron. Daniel held his mother at the bus stop, only for a second returning to being 5 years old again, and some part of Rosa, the part that had survived a husband and a creed. Some part of her knew this will be the last time you hold him. "I will write," said he fiercely. "Every week, Mama, every single week, I promise." Into his hand she pressed the wooden cross and her last coins and the old words, the only legacy remaining, "God saves the tears, Mijo." Remember, the letters came, 3 letters. The first dragged and was full of wonder. The second shorter, the harder the work. The third one short and weaved and stained, "Mama, I am okay. Do not worry, I love you." And then, the silence. A silence with a weight. Silence that you can grasp in the palm of your hand like a stone. Every day the bus came, Rosa went to the road. The months stitched into a year, the year into two, the letters stopped, and the promise rotted in the mailbox, like fruit no one bothered to pick. She wrote. God knows she wrote. Letters bought by hunger, my son Daniel, I am alive, I am here. The door is blue. Come home. They came back. Or they did not come back. It is the same thing, and the subtraction did its job. The debt found its heirs. The home Mateo constructed was confiscated. Then the final day, Rosa walked from room to room and traced her fingers along the walls as blind men do when they read. Then lifted the Bible off of the shelf along with a rosary and 2 little wooden birds still inside their paper box. And tripped blue door threshold to the outside and did not look back, because had she looked back she would have left her breath on that threshold. A month later a neighbor softly told her, looking at the ground, Rosa, your new owner painted it, he painted the door. She did not ask, but my neighbor said it anyway. He painted it gray. That was the exact day. Rosa was a woman with a house until the day the door was no longer blue and she became a woman with a street. She stayed by her corner near the hardware store, because it was the only corner she'd found would keep part of the wall and hold to whatever morning sun passed in winter. From the last vessel in the house he built. From the soup bowl, for hunger was now family, and so she fashioned her bowl. It made a roll of a house. And she sat down. And she covered her face. And all the tears that had been waiting, patiently like winter, the funeral tears, the bus stop tears, the mailbox tears, the gray door tears, they come. And the 11 years began. 11 years is a long time to cry. That was the curriculum Rosa took on in those years, all street. She learns that hunger has its hours and cold has its teeth, and the very worst thing one human being can do to another is nothing, the averted face, the eyes averted again from the turned back. She realized a man could boot a bowl and not be hurt, that the words children throw are like stones thrown at glass, without any understanding of how they leave scars. Yet she too gleaned the small mercies, and those she carried like coins in a secret pocket. The lunch seller arriving with soup silently. A son who once ran against his mother's hurry to keep walking there anyway. The run to her and drop a coin into the bowl and say, for you, abuela. And run. The stray dog with one ripped ear, who came to her corner every night and slept against her leg, and whom she fed half of the bread from her own poverty, most days, because mercy is the only wealth that increases when you give it away. And I wonder most of all if she learned the silence of God. She stopped going into the church. The church is only for clean people, she told me, sitting outside on Sundays while the bells rang, and the song of the congregation went through those idiot walls, like a beggar listens at a window. The rosary remained in her pocket, but the prayers would not come out of her. How do you pray to a God who saves your tears in a bowl, when the only bowl you have is empty? How do you call Our Father, to a Father who has seen you lose everything? The husband, the son, the house and door. The creed slept, God counts every tear. You believed so at the time of her wedding you. Over Daniel's cradle she had said it. It was as if it had a fable told for children, like a blue door, like the sky. And then the darkest night of the 11th year came. The coldest week of the winter it was. For 2 days the dog did not come. The bowl held nothing. The body of Rosa was only finished, tired as a lifetime can make a body, not sleepy, but done with it all, like a candle is done with its work, not broken, just burned. And that night, sitting on the stoop of a shuttered hardware store, in the darkness, Rosa made up her mind. She would stop hoping. Hope, she concluded, was the most cruel of all. Hope was what had brought her onto the road where she got a bus. The door my dreams of her blue every night for the last 11 years have been painted. Edited here as hope, she would put it down. It was nothing she would expect, ask or await. She would just persevere until it finished, and then it finishes and that is the end. But before she let the hope go, before she shut that door forever, she did one final thing, the last thing. She drew the rosary from her pocket, the wooden box's prize, dark from Mom's hands, smooth from mine. She cradled it and she said out loud to the dark, to the silence, to that God who was no longer sure if he heard her, this is my last prayer of my old faith. Lord, so I do not think you no longer hold my tears. I do not believe it. My husband is in the ground. My son is in the world. My door is gray, my bowl is empty. But my mom believed it and I was a kid, I did too, and it was beautiful. So if you are up there, and my mother was right, I am weary, Lord. Take them, take the tears, take them all. And take me when you come. I leave the door open. No longer I have the color, but I leave it open. And she slept there. In the doorway, first squeeze of heat clasping her heart, pull of time out of step, astrologer exceptionalism, rosary in her fist, and the dog back at last, curled warm against her feet. That night, far past the hills on a road without a name on any map, something stirred, on which ancient and gentle, yet terrible in its love for each other thing. Something that had not tread the roads of men in 2 millennia, and was now headed straight for a town down street or two, toward one named Weeping Woman. The night knew, the wind knew, and the tears in the metal bowl shook, like they finally realized their season for ruling was over. Dawn came gray and cold. The street woke as it always has, shutters lifting, a bus rattling awake, the lunch seller lighting her stove, Don Mamani unlocking his store with his breath in white clouds, and Rosa was at her post in the corner, as she had been for 11 years, face in her hands, shoulders shaking, the weeping, the leaking that is the soul, the drops fall one by one into the empty little metal bowl. But then, the light changed. First, Don Mamani peered up from behind the counter. For the next years of his life, he would say, it was like someone had hung a light behind the clouds. And then, there came walking slowly down the cobblestones, a warmth, a goldness, a brightness that was not an injury to the eyes but its remedy. The street went quiet. Not exactly silent, quiet, the sort of quiet that settles over a house when someone special walks in. The lunch seller stopped stirring. The children stopped running. Even the dogs lay down. And then there came a man through the light. His robes were the color of wheat and dust. Become trained on information till Oct 2023, his hair become long, his beard quick. And so the face there become no way for anyone down that road later to describe the face. All they told was it were a face like, like being known. He did not hurry, and the light went with him then, and he did not look at the store or the bus or the signs. He looked at the corner, he looked at the woman, and he knelt. The one who created those cobblestones knelt before the dirtiest, most despised creature on that street, and it was not beneath him kneeling on one knee. Knees like a king should never kneel in front of anything other than what he loves. And his hand, so gentle, reaches out and he whispered inside of her chest with the sound echoing from the innermost chamber of her, "Why are you crying?" Rosa lowered her hands. Something told her to obey, and she had no idea why. She raised her face, the map of winters, the shame 11 years, and she looked at him. And the first thing she felt was not fear, it was recognition. But deep beneath the grieving, underneath the dormant creed, below that aged gray door something within whispered, "I know you. I have always known you." And she answered, said the whole story in one splintered breath, "Because no one remembers me. Since my husband is in the earth. Because my son is in the world and I am on the street. My door is gray, God! Because I am forgotten." And the man smiled, not at her, for her. How the light smiles on a wound, to shut it. And he said, "You are not forgotten, Rosa." Her name. He said her name. And no one on that street had spoken her name in 11 years. "You are not forgotten, I have kept every tear. The night they took the house I counted them, the night the dog under your hair counted them. I had counted them at the grave, in the rain, me in the rain, Rosa. I saved the happy ones as well, just like your mother told you. The wedding. The stormy night your boy was born. The bread that rose happier. I keep them all, none has fallen to the ground." Then he spoke the kind of things that no stranger would ever know. "Mateo thunders like laughter, and he made your windows as wide open you loved the light. He made you a bird, then 2 birds, because love does not leave you wingless," he said. Her final words were, "The door is going to be bluebots. And your mom said God keeps track of the tears. They were both right, Rosa. They are both right now." Rosa was trembling. The tears were still dry on her face. And then he reached out and touched them, not the hands, the tears, with the thumb, like a mother wipes the face of her child. And he said softly, with all of the authority of heaven compressed into a whisper, "Weep no more. Your weeping is finished, your tears are received. And today, Rosa, today your son is coming home." And her tears vanished, instantly, not slowly, not gradually, instantly, and how the darkness melts when you simply open the door at noon. The 11 years of weeping were vanquished in a second, and replaced with a peace so deep and wide. The entire street felt it, the way a valley feels the sun rise before its eyes have seen it. "You are looking at Don Mamani, whom the sight of most children makes him chest." Opened the lunch seller, put her hand over the mouth. Because suddenly, impossibly, the face of winter on the old woman was now a face of mourning. She laughed. From out the long 11 years, there came again the voice as a little bell, the voice of the girl who sang at the well, and she laughed and kisses his hand to kiss it, touches it with her grip and holds on, and he was gone. 1 second, she looked down to grab his hand, and by the time she looked back up again, he was gone. Just the light, then that sank over the street as if to be folded and put away like a blessing. The cobblestones were ordinary. CR as I, C and U indicate on their signs ALMUR Zos and Faradere. But the bowl, that old soup bowl, it was full. Not with coins, with light. When Rosa lifted it, shaking like a baby bird, the light flooded out and disappeared into the cobblestones. And the bowl was empty again, but that didn't matter because she was full. She would never be empty again. So she stood up. She stood up after 11 years of sitting. And the street saw her stand, and the street did not know her anymore, and the street would never look as it had ever looked before. The bus arrived at noon. A man stepped down, worn, gray at the temples, an undersized jacket unseasonably warm, a face that had been gnawed by the city and vomited. He is at the corner with a bag and looks onto the street like ghost looking at a house it used to live in. It was Daniel. Everything the frail hands of an old man couldn't protect was taken by the north, the youth, the pride, the years. He had trespassed on other men's fields, slept in rooms with no names and sent bills that never arrived and letters that died in his pocket, because shame weighs more than any postage. After he had exercised the virtue of not writing when there was nothing good to say, he had then lost faith in the belief there were many good words to speak, and one night, seated quietly at a mission shelter with a lift on his head, nearly stuck up his dozen gloves inside. An old sister-like nun with a sound like a bell who sang the Almighty's hymns until she folded up after each verse croaked out a 4 different honest, but brilliant spell, weaving words that pads over harness, like darkest cigar clight, shrouding near blood members, wrap round life, 40 brave fisted roads, pop out carpentarian, Mefsanavis fleed, pushing knuckles called these, curly longer turnbows, and really incredible stingy cast of every living boy, melon harp. He expected to find a grave. He feared to find a stranger. She walked around the corner by the hardware store. He sees an old woman who is standing. There she stood in the sun. Her face upturned, a red shawl draped over her shoulders, and a piece on her face he had only ever seen once before in his life, in the home at table before meals when his mother prayed, "Mama." The word clattered from him like a coin into a bowl. Rosa turned. She glanced at the man whose temples were gray, and where he had no beard but a father's jaw. She did not hesitate, she did not need to. Mothers do not need faces. Mothers recognize souls, Mijo. And Daniel, the tough guy with endless courage and an iron will. The boy who had seen his father buried like a conqueror falling under strain. Daniel crumbled, raced across the street, and fell on his knees in front of her on the cobblestones, like the stranger had knelt before him a moment before and wept. Not one rag sob, a flood. All the tears he held for 11 years released in an instant, and his mother, her hands, the fingers turned up from constant work their whole lives. "Mama, forgive me. Mama, I'm sorry. Mama, what happened to you? You look like light." And Rosa smiled and she said the only thing that needed saying, the creed, awake now, proven now, alive now. Someone kept the tears, Mijo. Someone kept them all. And he said you were coming home. That night, mother and son walked to the old house. The door was gray. Daniel had stood in front of it for a long moment and then he said, using his father's voice, the voice of the builder, "Tomorrow, I paint it blue." And he did. And there in his store window, Don Mamani did something he hadn't done for 11 years. He crossed the street, and this time he sat with Rosa and listened. Really listened. To all of it. And the lunch vendor came, and the children came, and the priest came, and when Rosa finished telling it, he was silent for a long time, and finally said very softly, "Someone walked our street today, and we did not know it. And he will walk it again. Forever remembers a house where love lived." Rosa lived 9 more years. They were not years of abundance. She lived and died on the street, but the street left her. Her corner became a place where the poor got their hunger fed, and the weeping had somewhere to sit down and be listened to, where every broken person on that bumpy bit of cobblestone learned one after another. In time with working class music from radio sets turned up high enough for those at beggars' ends to hear. God keeps the tears. Finally, when she died in peace on a bed with Daniel holding one hand and the wooden birds on the windowsill, the whole town came. And they took her past the house with the blue door, and the bells rang unassisted. So said the old bell ringer. And no soul in town doubted him. By then no soul in town had come to doubt anything at all that had to do with Rosa. Her bowl, the old soup bowl, hangs over the blue door today. Empty. Because the counting is finished. Because the tears are kept. Because the night ended. And if you're weeping tonight, if your door is gray, and your bowl is empty, and your road is long, and your hope is beat up, listen to this story one more time, and let it be true for you. You are not forgotten. None of your tears has fallen on the ground. They are counted. They are kept. In hands that were stretched and pierced for you, your night, no matter how long, however frozen. Your night has a wait, and the wait is almost here. Leave the door open. He is already on the road, and when he stoops down to you and kneels before you, as he does, and says, "Why are you crying? Oh, your tears will vanish instantly. Amen."